Hello guys, welcome to the sharpening session for today. So my name is Becky. You can see it there if you turn your head a little bit. My email address there is becky@traddictiv.com. Now as you can see, and before we start with disclaimers and an official sort of introduction to the session, as you can see we have here Q&A. That is the normal topic of these sharpening sessions. So for those that are joining us, whether you're on YouTube or maybe you're in the closed session, within the community as well. If you let me know on the chat box if you have any specific questions, and I'll make sure that we cover those first today. Otherwise, I have a topic in mind to go through, but these sessions are for you. They're for you guys to clear up any confusions that you have, get questions answered that you need answered. So as I go through the disclaimers and introduce this session, just type on the chat box, let me know. I'm just seeing a hello there. Just seeing that from there. Marjub, hello Marjub. So yeah, just let me know if you're joining me on the session today. Let me know if you have any specific questions. My topic of choice that I was going to go into today, otherwise, just for you guys to know, was going to be talking about balancing the objective side of things, the getting our methodology objective and correct, balancing that with our subjective being as a human being to make sure that we have the best possible opportunities to be able to enact our objective methodology as best as possible. Essentially, it's talking about expectations, trade plans, what variables you might need to change depending on the type of person that you are. So that was what I was going to go through. Again, if you have questions, I will answer those first. So you let me know as I'm introducing if you have any questions. Otherwise, in a couple of minutes, if I see none on the chat box, then I will just carry on with that topic. So I'm just going to double check here on this side as well, just to see the chat box, if there's anything coming in there. Okay, nothing for the moment. Cool. So let me just make sure that we cover the disclaimers here on the screen. They are showing up there. Of course, important for you guys to read them, not just for legal reasons, but of course, good to understand that when we go through any of our sessions, whether that's sharpening, whether it's futures, stocks, Forex, whatever that we're doing, we are demonstrating how we use the technology and explaining how we might do things. It's up to you to change it, tweak it, not do it at all, do it entirely, copy what we do, ignore what we do. It's entirely up to you to make it fit you. And actually, like I said, that was going to be the kind of topic of today anyway. It's how you would figure out what needs to be molded towards you and what needs to be left as it is. So again, we'll go through that a bit later after any questions. I've just seen a question come in there from Christian. So what does dark versus light green and red UFOs mean? I haven't got my glasses on, I have to squint to see the chat box. And the squares often painted imagine. Okay, good question. I will get onto that. I'll show you on TradingView. That's what I've got loaded already. So good question. I'll show you the difference between those colours and what that means. And I'll also explain what that means on TradeStation. It will take me a while to load it. So I won't load it today and show you, but I'll explain it and hopefully that will make sense. And again, like I said, I'll show you on TradingView. Now again, before we officially get started, I just want to point to this link here. Reason for that is, of course, you guys are going to have questions probably. If you're watching this recorded and you can't ask it sort of in the moment, then you might have questions afterwards. You can, of course, email me. I'm happy for you guys to do that. But I prefer that questions are asked in a public space because then other people can see the answer and it helps everybody in the community. So if you go to tradewithufos.com/Becky, which is here, that'll be what you'll see. You can just set yourself up with a free membership there, name and email address. Once you've got your free membership, you can then come down here to this section and you'll be able to ask a question. Once you're logged in, you'll be able to ask a question that then other people can see. So if you scroll down a little bit more, these are questions that people have already asked and have been answered. So again, it's a good idea for you, I think, for you guys to ask questions publicly so that the answer can be seen by other people. And then it means if you have a question in a few weeks' time, a few months' time, rather than email me and maybe wait a day or so for a response, you get it here straight away because somebody else has probably asked it before you. So I would prefer you guys do that. Or, like I said, you can email me if you really want to do it that way. No problem. Okay, so just to explain, because we have a slight change of... where am I? Here we go. Sorry. We have a slight change of the way that we do our sessions, so I just want to explain what that is. So of course, first of all, we say hello to everybody. Now I know that's 2 words and it's very simple words, but I'm just going to expand a little bit on this in the sense that there are people watching this stream on Facebook, there are people watching it on YouTube, there are people watching it from within our closed coaching community. Hello to all of you. This session is for all of you. Now, why would it be for all of you if there are some within a closed coaching community that they pay for? It might be $21 a month that they're paying for their coaching. Maybe they've paid for a yearly fee. Maybe they're part of the all-inclusive package. So why would these sessions be for those people that have paid within that community and for everybody else watching for free? Because we are doing, basically we are splitting these sessions now into kind of half and half. It depends on the content, where we are still, of course, wanting to provide value and education and help for those that do want to join us for free. Absolutely no problem with that. So you'll still get these sessions at some point throughout the session. Normally, if it's a live trading where we're looking at markets looking for opportunity, after we found the first opportunity, we'll then cut those live streams and go into those that session that is in closed community. So those that are paying for the closed community are getting basically a little bit extra of our time, where it's just within that room. Everybody else is still getting opportunities, you're still getting help, we're still explaining things, but again, your streams will be cut around about the halfway point. Maybe it might be a little bit later, a little bit earlier in the session, depending on what's covered, what opportunities we find. If we don't find opportunity till the end of the session, then everybody watches that. If we find one opportunity at the start of the session, cut it after that, and then we continue on the private room. So hopefully that makes sense. The more we do these, the more it will make sense to everybody as you watch it. And again, with our website, let me just show you this actually so you can see that. So that if you're part of the, let's go to tradewithufos.com/live. You'll see here that if you were logged in, you would be able to join the trading room there. So those are the people within the closed community. Otherwise, you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. Okay, so that is what we're doing today. Now, normally what we would do is we would go through, there we go. We would go through different market environments, trade reviews. In the case of the sharpening sessions, of course, this is more of a Q&A, general trading knowledge, talking about different topics, concepts, things like that. So we're not obviously going to look at opportunities. So basically, it will depend on the questions that we have and how far we get into the content as to when we may cut off the stream for the live thing. But we'll see as we go today. Okay, so first question that we had was about UFOs, and great question because, again, this is something that a lot of people might ask. So if we look here, I can't actually see that on this chart. These look like they're all touched UFOs. Let's look at another one. So let me see, here we go. All right, so on this chart, we see that we have two red UFOs above us, but they're slightly different colors. The one right above us there, just above us here, is a light red color. And then the one above that is like a dark red color, like a maroon color. Also, the question was specifically about green UFOs, but same thing. Again, here we go. We have a UFO just beneath us, the one that's closest to us. That's a light green. And then we have a dark green one here. So what's the difference? So let me just squidge this up so we can see. There you go. So the red UFOs, just regardless of color for now, the red UFOs are showing us where sell orders are likely to be. The green UFOs are showing us where buy orders are likely to be. So we get that. But good question. What's the difference between the different colors? Why would we pick a light one over a darker one or whatever? So when it is a light green or a dark red, so when it's off of the main color. So if we look at this one here, this is a sort of pure red color. And then here we have like a pure green color. If it's a pure red or a pure green, that means there are more orders there. Essentially, the probability is slightly higher. If it is a light green or this maroon red, so kind of off of that main color, if that makes sense. So slightly different color green, slightly different color red. That means there are slightly less orders there. So essentially the probability is slightly less. What that means, because if we think about it this way, so when we have UFOs, let's put that up here. UFO stands for unfilled order. Meaning that there are buy orders that are waiting to be filled. There are sell orders that are waiting to be filled. So buy orders push price up, sell orders push price down. If you have more buyers than sellers, price has to go up. If you have more sellers than buyers, price has to go down. So UFOs are highlighting to us on a chart where we have likelihood that there are orders waiting to be filled. Meaning, if I press buy, that goes in as a buy order. If I say I want to buy when price gets to 20.52, that's a buy order. It's not been filled yet because price isn't at 20.52. If I say I want to sell if price gets to, so let's just round that up, 21.25, that goes in as a sell order. I haven't sold it yet because price hasn't got there yet. So that's where these orders are waiting. And again, the AutoUFOs are finding that on a chart. Now, if price has come back, so I'm just going to draw a random UFO here. So let's say we had a UFO here. And let's say price comes down and it touches this UFO. That means once price has got to that point, orders are being filled because there were people waiting to buy when price got to that exact price. Once price did get to that price, they're buying. So orders are being filled. Now, maybe not that many orders are filled and it shoots off. So the UFO is still there because the app is still picking up that there are still unfilled orders there, but there are less orders. If that makes sense. So same with a sell UFO. Let's do this the other way around. If we had a sell UFO, and again, let's just randomly draw one. Let's just do it in the middle of white space here. Let's say we have a red UFO here, and let's say price is down here, comes up, touches the red UFO. That means people were waiting to sell at that price. Price is now at that price, which means orders are being filled. People that wanted to sell in that area are being able to sell. So now that they're starting to sell, orders are being filled. There are less sell orders waiting because they're being filled. Then price might go off. The app would still show the UFO if it still picks up that there's enough orders there. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me just come back to the chat box here. Excuse the squinting. Like I said, I've got my glasses on, can't see it. Light and dark colours are not visible on TradeStation. No, okay, so good question. On TradeStation, you would have, and I'm going to do it in slightly different colours here. So on TradeStation, you would have, it would sort of look like this. You'd have your UFO, and the UFO would be sort of filled in as a dark red. So that's me filling it in. If it's got more orders in it. If it was, let's use a slightly different colour. If it was like a lighter red, so let's say it looks like that, and it's like a lighter red, that means that there are less orders. So you'll see the difference if you see on TradeStation, it's like a deeper red or a lighter red. The deeper the colour, the more orders that we have. The lesser the colour, or like the lighter the colour, the less orders are there. So if it's a green UFO, you'll have a thick green or a dark green. In fact, I'm going to represent that with blue here. So let's say you have a thick, sort of darker, deeper green. That's our more orders there on the UFO. If it's a lighter green on TradeStation, then it might be, I'm just going to colour that in a little bit more, so I'm really making the point that this one is deeper and darker and this one is lighter. On TradeStation, the lighter colour, the less orders, the deeper colour, the more orders. On TradingView, the pure colour, which in this case is going to be this pure UFO here, and then this pure UFO here. So it's like just normal red and green, if that makes sense, pure red and green. And then the slightly off colour, which in this case is olive green or maroon red. You want to be specific about those shades there. Those would signify less orders. So hopefully that makes sense. Quickly, because if all the orders are cancelled, does the UFO go away? Yes, good question. Again, I like this, guys. Well done. Good questions. So with the UFO, with the AutoUFO app, what it's doing is showing us where we have likelihood of orders there. So let's say, again, let's just draw randomly. Let's say we have a UFO here, and price comes in, and let's say this was the top of our UFO. I'll try and be a little bit more specific there to really try and make my point. Okay, so let's say this was the top of our UFO, and that's 1960. Okay, so let's say, just switch that down a little bit. Let's say at 1960, that's where we were seeing, again, it's a random example, the top of this buy UFO, meaning that is the first price at which the AutoUFO app is saying there are likely to be buy orders between here and, again, it would be to the bottom of the UFO, between, let's say, 1925. Again, let's just round that down to make this easy numbers. So the app is saying there are buy orders between here, between these two numbers. So let's say price comes in and it fills quite a lot of orders and then goes off. The UFO is just going to disappear because the app is now not picking up any unfilled orders or enough to show you that they're there. Let's say the price comes in and shoots off straight away. Or it comes in and it doesn't fill that many orders, and the app is still doing its job and it will still show you that UFO because there's still UFOs there, there's still unfilled orders there, but it will change colour. so that it's showing you have less orders. There's still orders there, but there are less of them, which means lower probability of working out. Like I said, if price was to come straight through this anyway, if price was to go through this area, then the app would just delete the UFO, because of course there's no unfilled orders there anymore if price has moved through it. So again, it might be that price comes in a little bit, and let's say it didn't hit 1925, so it didn't go through the UFO, maybe it turned somewhere in the middle of the UFO. But the app will have picked up, there are not enough orders here for me to show it at all, delete it. Or it will say, there's still orders here, I'm still going to show it, but it's a different colour, so you know there's less orders there. So what about the square around it? Okay, cool. So the circle is showing us the highest concentration of orders. So on TradeStation, where you have the, on TradingView, the numbers that we see are just the top and bottom of the rectangles, the top and bottom band. On TradeStation, the numbers that you see next to the UFOs refer to the inner circle. The inner circle is where the highest concentration of orders are. We still use the entire UFO to help us figure out our entry and stop. Let's say you're somebody that is particularly risk averse, you want to make sure that you keep your risk as low as possible. You might want to say, let's say that the numbers, again, let's just make these numbers up. Let's say it's 1960 to 1925. That's the square, that's the rectangle, that's where the lines would show on TradingView, on TradeStation, that would be the top and bottom of the rectangle. That's the total range of price there for where our orders are. But let's say the inner circle is, let's say, I don't know, 1955 to 1942. That's a smaller area. So there are some people that may choose to simply use that inner circle and just reduce the size of their zone there a little bit, the difference between their entry and stop. Now, we don't do that, because what that can mean is, let's say that the top of our UFO, which is the app saying this is the top of where the orders are likely to be, is 1960, but we want to save ourselves a few pips or save ourselves a few cents and get in there at 1955, well, maybe price hits 1960, 1959 and then reacts to it because it hits a bunch of buy orders. And we're still waiting down here at 1955 for our order to trigger. We didn't get in because we had our order a little bit lower. So you can use that inner circle to be a little bit more precise. It means that, let's say, for example, it did come down to 1950, for example, which is in the middle of that UFO if you take those two top bands, but just within this inner circle, then we've saved ourselves a few cents. We bought it at a slightly lower price, which is great if you really value being that accurate. But the downside of that is you might miss a whole bunch of trades that hit that top band of the rectangle, hit that top band of the square, or hit those lines that we have there on TradingView. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of the rectangle versus the circle. The circle is important to show us where we have the highest concentration, and you can use that if you want to be very, very specific. But you'll notice in all of the sessions that we do, we care about what the rectangle is telling us. We care about the total range there, and we'll get in on that top range if it's a buy UFO, that top number, and we'll get out just below that bottom number. If it's a sell UFO, so let's draw one here. If it's a sell UFO, even if the inner circle is here, if the rectangle is here, this is where our entry is going to be. And our stop is going to be just above that red UFO. Again, the top band on the rectangle. So hopefully that makes sense again. Inner circle versus rectangle. Good question. It might be important for you to use, but as a general rule, I'd say 90-something% of people that use this app are focusing just on what the rectangle is saying anyway. And if they're using TradingView, then the band that it shows you is the same as what the rectangle would show you on TradeStation, which is that full range of where the app is picking up those orders. So another question there. If it's a lighter colour, it still is a UFO though. Yes. Should we still set up an order on a light UFO, or if not? Okay, good question. So again, this brings me into some of the things that we see in terms of objective versus subjective. There are some that will say, and neither side is right or wrong, and I'll explain, this will kind of lead me into explaining what I was going to explain anyway. There are some that will say, I will only take the pure colours because that's where I have the highest amount of unfilled orders, and therefore I'm ignoring the lighter colours. If you do that, you are increasing your probability, but decreasing the amount of opportunity. That's not necessarily right or wrong. It will mean that maybe instead of 10 opportunities in a month, let's say you're a swing trader, you might have 5 opportunities in a month. That's not necessarily a problem if out of 5, let's just make up these numbers, let's say out of 5, 3 of them win and hit rate, because there's a higher chance of them working. Let's say if you took 10, 5 of them would win. So you've got a 50% hit rate. So you might increase your probability, but you're losing amount of trades that you can take. There will be others, and again, you'll notice with us on our sessions, as long as the UFO is enveloped by, or is enveloping the EMA value that we use there on that other chart, then we don't care whether or not it's a light UFO or a dark UFO, different colors, inner circle, whatever. It's just a UFO that is enveloping the EMA. We take that because the EMA is adding probabilities to that as well. And the app is still showing us that there's orders there. So exactly, good question. It's still a UFO. If the UFO is there, the app is telling us you have unfilled orders there. If the EMA also is inside that UFO, then we have probabilities from the EMA and probabilities from the UFO, even though there's slightly less than if it was a different color UFO, but we're still combining those two forces to give us enough probabilities to place a trade. That's how we see it. But there wouldn't be anything wrong with saying, I'm going to add a variable here and I'm going to only take UFOs that are enveloped, that envelop the EMA and are the darker color, and are the, depending on whether you use TradeStation or TradingView, and are the higher probability UFOs, depending on the color that you have. That would be perfectly fine. But understand the flip side of that is less opportunity. So that's where it comes down to you then as a trader and as a person. Would you be frustrated to see 10 opportunities, because you can still see the other color UFOs, not take 5 of them because they're not the color UFO that you want it to be, take the other 5 and see that some of the trades that you didn't take would have worked? Would that frustrate you? If it wouldn't frustrate you because you go, okay, yeah, some of them might work, but they're not going to work as well as the other ones that I take, so fine. Great. If it would frustrate you enough to the point where you're going to be breaking your rule anyway, don't have that rule. So again, hopefully that makes sense. Very good question. Thank you guys for asking about the UFOs here and the colors and stuff. Because again, it to me, all of these kind of questions that might be, what about Fibonacci's, or what about fundamentals, or what about this? All great questions, and the answer always is going to be, it's up to you to decide how strict you want to be on it. If you understand what the difference is, which hopefully this has helped clarify what that difference is, it's then up to you to then say, okay, do I want to be more strict and add in that the color is now important as to whether or not I take the trade, and forfeit more opportunities in exchange for greater probability? Or am I okay to take any UFO as long as it envelops the EMA and have more opportunities even though the probability might be a little bit less? That question is perfectly valid to answer either way, and that's what's up to you. You're still using an objective methodology, you're still using UFOs that are highlighting for you on a chart where there are objective areas where we have higher probability. You're still using a methodology that helped you to answer question number 1 of should we go long or short or do nothing by using our auto climate. You're still using an objective methodology, but you are choosing one side or the other on whether or not you're stricter on a variable based on your subjectivity. And that's the balance that we always need to make as traders. So I'm just checking the box. I'm not seeing. Let me check the other box, which is same question there. Okay, cool. So the dark UFOs be more apt to be institutional limit orders. Oh, okay, good question there, Joe. So I've just seen this question here. Would the darker UFOs be more apt to be institutional limit orders? No, is the short answer. So they are all likely to be orders, whether it's institutional or not. It's more likely to be institutional because it's picking up big stacks of buy and sell orders, and big stacks of buy and sell orders are likely to come from either many individuals which is unlikely because individuals are all doing very different things, all in different places, on different charts, on different time frames or whatever. Or institutions, funds, banks, whatever, that have a lot of money that can place big order stacks at the same price at the same time. It could be one or the other, it could be a mixture of both, but the UFOs in general, whatever colour they are likely to show us more institutional orders, because that's more likely to be a big stack of orders within a tight range is going to come from professionals that have the money to do that. Or it could be many, many individuals all at the same price, which is possible but less likely. The colour simply dictates whether or not some of those orders have been filled. So if you had, and again, just making up the number, let's say you have 1 million institutional buy orders. If 200,000 of those are filled, there's still 800,000 institutional orders there. So the app is still going to say there's orders here, enough that might give you probability to change the direction of price, enough to show you. But it's not the same as there being 1 million orders there still waiting. If that makes sense between those two concepts there, with whether it's institutional or not, it's just the different colour is saying some of these orders have already been filled, which means less likelihood that there is a bigger stack. That's not to say that in this random example that we've just made up, that 800,000 orders could not change price and push it straight up again. Of course it can, but 1 million orders are more likely to do that than 800,000. So again, hopefully I'm checking the chat box there and just seeing that we're all good and that all makes sense. You guys let me know. Again, I'll check in on the chat box and just see that we're all okay with this. Again, you might be watching this as a recording later after the fact. Again, no problem. If you have questions about what I'm going through or have any questions you want to ask, go to tradewithufos.com/Becky. With a free membership, you can ask questions in public. So again, other people can go to that place to find the answer. It looks like we're good. It's a relative calculation. Yes, so it's, of course, I made up the numbers with it being 1 million at one place, and then if some of the orders are filled, there's 800,000 left. It could be 500,000 and 300,000. It could be 50,000 and 40,000. You know, but whatever number it is relative. What we're doing here, the UFOs are showing us in their colour where we have stronger probability or lower probability. But as long as it is enveloped, let me just move that. As long as it is enveloping our EMA, which is where we also have more orders coming in. And at that price is when we're likely to have market orders coming in. So there's a difference there between limit and market orders. Limit orders, which is essentially what our UFOs are people saying, I want to buy when price gets to this number, which is a limit order, predefining the price that you want to buy or sell at, which is not whatever the price is now. When people are buying and selling at the EMA value, because it's a moving thing, it's likely to be that price has to physically come up and touch it, and you have to be sat watching it to press sell, which goes in as a market order. You're not saying sell if it gets to this price, because you don't know what that price will be, because the moving average moves. So when people are buying and selling at moving averages, it's more likely to be a market order. Meaning, at this moment in time, let's take this, we're currently beneath our EMA and we've got a UFO here. So let's just take this example. In fact, let's just make this a little bit bigger here so we can see it a little bit easier. Okay, let me just move. I think I've just locked it. That's annoying. I don't know what I just did. Okay, well, we've got that UFO just above us. Hopefully can I not lock it? Reset price now? Okay, I need to fiddle about with that. I don't know what I've just done. But, okay, we have a UFO here. We have a red UFO here, and we would be looking to short this particular market because we have a confirmed downwards climate. We have our EMA here. Let's just assume at the moment that EMA would be enveloped by our UFO. In fact, I'm looking at Google, Facebook on one and Google on the other, so let's go Google to the other one. And this is, let's do Google there. I've locked this chart on the right hand side. Okay, let me just go back to what I was doing before. Let's see if we can change this one. Okay, great, brilliant. So let's say that we have, still not syncing right, is it? Okay, let's just go through this as a random example. Sorry, I can't show you exactly what's on the chart. I think I'd have to faff around for a little bit to get this to work, because it's not syncing with the prices and things, which is kind of annoying, but my bad there. So let's say we have a UFO here, price is here, the EMA at the moment from the other side is here. Okay, so it's coming down maybe nearly in this UFO. Now, if price were to come up and hit this UFO, hold on, let's assume that we have our EMA, let's use a different color. Let's assume our EMA is here, so it's inside this UFO at the moment. If price were to come up and hit the UFO, it's going to hit a bunch of sell orders that were waiting for it. Whatever the color of the UFO, whether there's more or less orders, it's still showing to us that it's going to hit a stack of sell orders. And at the same time, a whole bunch of people, because it's hit the EMA value, let's say the EMA value also moved up with price and it's now here, but still within the UFO. A whole bunch of people at the EMA value, once it hits this line, so still within our UFO, once it hits the EMA value, are also coming in and pressing sell right now, that we didn't know ahead of time that we're going to be there at that time, because it's whatever the moving average is right now. And price and moving average meeting is where often market orders are coming in. So you've got market orders coming in to sell here, as well as a bunch of sell orders that were waiting to be filled at the same time or around the same price. So even if there are slightly less orders there in our UFO and it's a slightly different color, we're adding to the stack of orders by the fact that a lot of people are going to be coming in and selling at that EMA value, which is why we use those both together. That the UFO that we pick, doesn't matter about the color, needs to be enveloped, or needs to envelop our EMA, because we're then combining, in this case, market orders to sell as well as sell orders that were waiting to be filled. So sellers and sellers. The more sellers we have, the more likely it is that price comes down. When we're buying, it would be prices above the EMA, comes down, hits the EMA, loads of people come in, start pressing buy at market. Whatever that price is right there, which is the price of the moving average, they're pressing buy. We now have buy orders that have come in as a result of that moving average at the same price that we had a stack of buy orders waiting to be filled anyway. That adds more buyers. The more buyers we have, the more likely it is that price goes up. That's why we combine the two. So the color of the UFO, to come back to that point, is relevant in the sense that it tells us whether or not we have more or less orders, relatively, but it is less relevant than it being combined with the EMA, because the EMA is going to bring in those same orders at the same place anyway. Hopefully that makes sense. So why do some UFOs disappear even when price is nowhere close to them? Okay, that may be the amount of data that you load, because normally the UFOs would be there until they're, they could be there for years and years and years and years. Like, let's say, for example, if we were to look at a chart of, if we go to a weekly chart, say, and we put on UFOs here. So let me just put that on. So we've got UFOs here on our weekly chart. So we've got UFOs down from, let's just squidge this up. So this price down here, this was 2015. These UFOs that are down here were formed around about this price, which was 2014. There you go, where it's kind of highlighted then. So those are like 7 years old, nearly. They're still there. It might be that if they are old UFOs, so they've come from 7 years ago, maybe you're loading 5 years worth of data, for example, and so as time moves forward and you're loading the last 5 years, so that cut-off point behind you is following you in time, does that make sense? Then you're going to miss out on the older UFOs. But normally the UFOs will only disappear if price moves through them, or if price goes into them enough that it's eaten up enough orders that the app is now saying, not enough here to even show you that there's orders there. And again, the good thing about using technology to do this, that's the objective side of things, where we're able to look at this and say, where do we want to get in when we buy and sell? Do we want to be buying where we have lots of buy orders, or do we want to be buying where we have some buy orders, or do we want to be buying where we have some buy orders coming in for one reason, lots of buy orders coming in for another reason. That's an objective thing. And the technology of a moving average, which is free, technology of AutoUFOs, which are relatively cheap or affordable, depending on which platform you use, they are showing us objectively on a chart where we should be buying or selling. That's objective, and that's good. Trying to work out patterns with your eye, or trying to interpret what the news says before you then make buy or sell decisions, is too subjective. There are too many things that could change just as a result of the fact that you're a human being. At least if we use, and it doesn't even need to be UFOs and autoclimate and moving averages, that's what we use as a methodology, but you could use Fibonacci retracements and crossings of moving averages, whatever. You could use support and resistance breakouts that are done by, again, technology that plots it for you. If you're using at least some form of technology that plots something for you, because it can analyze data way better than you can, because you're a human being, you know, we can't analyze what AutoUFOs are analyzing in a fraction of a second. It would take probably an hour just to analyze one area of a chart and then go and look at volume and the other things that AutoUFOs are looking at to be able to say this has enough orders or it doesn't. Maybe you might be somebody that is used to seeing this and you've done it with your eyes and you're just looking for chart patterns. And again, that's fine, but it's subjective. You're using your eye. You might miss an opportunity just because you didn't see it. You might take an opportunity just because you were tired that day and you got confused as to whether or not it hit the criteria that it needs. Try and use something objective, something technological that can say to you, hey, you might want to look here. You can then decide whether or not you take that, but you haven't had to do any of the work or any of the thought or any of the subjective process to even find that opportunity in the first place. Let technology show you where opportunities are, and then you can layer on variables that are subjective to make this stricter or not, depending on the type of person that you are. So I'm just going to come back here, look for more questions. Do you take the trade if a counter UFO is above or under visibly? Okay, so the answer to that is yes and no. So I will take the trade and we will take the trade if, let's say for example in this one, we have a sell UFO here and we have a buy order very close underneath it. So what that tells us is that we have buy and selling pressure very close to each other on that time frame. This is why that we use the autoclimate. So if I come to the end here and see what autoclimate would be, we need to go back to a daily chart as well. And again, these aren't syncing, which is my fault, with the locking of that screen on the right. But let's say, for example, we are looking to go short. If on the bigger time frame, which in this case I'm using swing trading example, so it's a daily chart for our autoclimate and a 55-minute for the entry time frame. So if we are looking to go short and we have a confirmed probability to the downside on the bigger time frame, then going short here, again, we would go short there if it coincides with the EMA. So we've got sell orders and sell orders coming in, great. And we have on a higher time frame, which is normally stronger, the higher the time frame, the more orders have to move it, which means more strength usually in the bigger time frames. And we have a confirmed probability to the downside on a bigger time frame. That is more likely to now push through this buy UFO. Saying that, let's say we had a buy UFO on the bigger time frame. The buy UFO on the bigger time frame is very, very close to us, i.e. less than 1-to-1. Then what we're counteracting is we've got sell orders on a UFO on a smaller time frame, but then we have buy orders on a bigger time frame. So a bigger stack of orders on a bigger time frame. So we wouldn't want to be taking that because we're fighting against more, if that makes sense. We're kind of really going against the tide there, where we've got, yeah, we might have probability to the downside, but we have a big stack of buy orders coming in on that very same time frame that may change the climate. So if we have a UFO close on the bigger time frame, then no, we don't take it. If we have a UFO close on the smaller time frame, no problem. And again, you could be stricter where you say I have to have at least 1-to-1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, whatever you want to do, distance between my entry UFO and the opposing or rival UFO on the same time frame. Again, that's going to rule out more opportunities. Again, if you balance the probabilities here, let's say I'm just making up the numbers and this is just to make a point, to maybe make it easier to explain. I'm not saying these would happen. Let's say we have 5,000 sell orders. Let's do this a different colour so it makes a bit more sense. So we have 5,000 sell orders at this point waiting. Let's also say, for sake of argument, that there are 5,000 buy orders just beneath us. So we're fighting against each other there. We've got sellers versus buyers, and it's going to depend who comes in. Now, let's say at this point, just in terms of the amount of orders waiting in those UFOs, those are the numbers. Let's then say that because of the fact we have a confirmed downwards climate, another few thousand sellers come in, just randomly at whatever the price is, because they see the price is coming down. So that adds more orders around that price. Let's also say the price comes back in, and at the same time, our EMA value from here also lines up. So that means that another, let's say another, I don't know, 3,000 orders come in. So now we've got, yeah, maybe the UFOs just by themselves against each other, if we added nothing else in, might be equal against each other. But we've added orders for the sake of the climate, and we've added orders for the sake of the EMA, making it more probable that that pushes through that stack of buy orders. So you've now got 10,000 sell orders and 5,000 buy orders. Sellers are going to win. There's more of them. That's how that works. Now, let's say, let's keep those here, and let's say that's got 5,000. But, or let's say this UFO didn't exist. But we had a UFO here on a bigger time frame. Let's change that around. Wrong one. There we are. We've got a UFO here on a bigger time frame, very, very close. Now, because it's a bigger time frame, usually it means more orders, bigger stack of orders. Let's say here, just so happens that there are 15,000 of them, because it's a bigger time frame. So we might have had sell orders here that were waiting. We might also have had sell orders come in because the climate is coming down. We might also have sell orders coming in because of the EMA, but we might be coming up against a big stack of buy orders that could have more orders than are all coming together for that sell UFO. So it makes it then not worth doing, or it makes the probability not high enough for us to risk our money doing. So again, hopefully that makes sense as to the UFOs. We care more about the opposing UFOs, the rival UFOs, on the bigger time frame because there's bigger stacks of orders. On the smaller time frame, we don't care. As long as we have our climate, in this case, climate is short or climate is down, so we look to go short. As long as our EMA is enveloped by our UFO, we are adding multiple probabilities there that are likely to smash through, or at least slowly push through, the opposing UFOs that might be on the way on the smaller time frame. So again, hopefully that makes sense. So that is actually a good time, I think, to cut the live stream and to continue in the closed room, to then just go into this subjective versus objective thing a little bit more. I'll do more sessions of this as we go through sharpening sessions anyway, because I think it's important. When you watch me in my stock sessions, I will be talking about this all the time, and I'll say things like, you could do this or you could do that. That depends on you. And the reason I wanted to do a session where I sort of explain that a little bit more, and hopefully this has kind of helped you a little bit to say, if you pick the higher probability UFOs with the different colours than the other ones, you increase probability but you decrease opportunity. And hopefully you understand why there's no right answer to that, and why that is down to you, and how psychologically you would feel about not taking opportunities that have a decent enough probability, or whether or not you're somebody that values being accurate and probable way more often. And you wouldn't mind if you saw a light colour UFO work, even if you didn't take it. That's down to you. So when I'm saying in these sessions, you might do this or you might do this, I get that, especially people newer to trading might be like, just tell me which one to pick. This is where we have to understand that if we do something, if we pick a side of the aisle there, on whatever it is, if we do that, we are likely to end up forcing ourselves to do something that we're not comfortable doing, which means we're more likely as human beings to break the rules anyway, or give up, or see that it doesn't work for a week and change our minds. So understand before you decide which side of the aisle you fall on. Are you going to take any UFO as long as it combines with the EMA, or are you going to be more specific and say you want the pure colour UFO? Either one is fine. Understand what you sacrifice either way, understand where you benefit either way, and then decide what makes the most sense to you by playing out in your head. How would I feel if I saw light UFOs work and I didn't take them? Or how would I feel if to take all UFOs gives me, I don't know, 40% probability, but to take darker colours UFOs gives me 60% probability? If that means that I have more probability of it working, even though I might have half the opportunity, I'm okay with that because I'm less okay with being wrong 5 times out of 10, or whatever the numbers are. So I hope you might fall one side or the other. Why we do that? Again, I'm going to turn off the streams now for the live session, but hopefully you guys understood what I was saying. Any questions that you have, of course, you can email me if you want to, becky@traddictiv.com, or go to tradewithufos.com/Becky, and you can ask the question in a public space. Again, this is a concept I'm going to go through multiple times. I talk about it all the time because it's to me so important. That's why you might notice on the website I do courses on trading plans and backtesting, because it's so important to be able to mold these things for us to fit ourselves. It's something I'm quite passionate about. So you will hear it from me again, but I'll turn off the live streams now. We'll continue in the closed room. So those of you that are joining us there, we can continue with this topic in a little bit more depth. So let me just do that, and I will see you guys next time. For those of you that are joining us sort of live on YouTube and stuff, have a great weekend. We'll be back Monday with more sessions, so see you guys then. Any questions, let me know. And I will continue in the room with everybody else. So see you in a bit, guys. You just